is womenpowerourplanet.org. We are a movement to educate and advocate for women moving their money, or people moving their money out of banks that pollute, such as one of the biggest polluters is Chase Bank. They use our money to fund fossil fuels and warfare. So we have a resource section on womenpowerourplanet.org of the banks that do not fund polluters. So please check out womenpowerourplanet.org. If you want to know which banks you can switch and move your money to, so that they don't use your money for nefarious things. And we want to use our money for good. With that said, I want to introduce our incredible panel today. We are going to be speaking with Chief Arvol Looking Horse, Paula Looking Horse, Janet McGilvery, and Anne-Therese Gennari. So Chief Arvol Looking Horse was born on the Cheyenne River Reservation in South Dakota. His primary responsibility is serving as the 19th generation keeper of the sacred white buffalo calf pipe, a role he was given at age 12, making him the youngest pipe keeper in Lakota history. As a keeper of the sacred pipe, he also serves as the spiritual leader of the Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota Nation, and advocates for the restoration of the Lakota Nation's rights to the Black Hills, as guaranteed by the 1968 Laramie Treaty. Paula Looking Horse is an accomplished Dakota dancer and singer. She has been involved with Heart of the Indigenous Rights Movement for over 20 years, organizing the Run to the Pipestone, the Thanksgiving Feast, and is one of the original graduates of Red Schoolhouse. She's a outreach and communications with world-renowned peace leaders. She's a mother of 8 children, 3 adopted children, and 10 grandchildren. She leads a full and active life. Her passion continues to be working with youth and teaching them the importance of their participation in creating a better future for the environment. By teaching these responsibilities, she hopes they will become enlightened by their own contribution in spirituality, self-identity, and self-esteem. So I'm going to turn this over to Paula and Arvol. We are going to hear from them. We are so blessed and honored to have them. They're great spiritual leaders, spiritual teachers. So without further ado, you have our full attention. Thank you.
I'd like to always say a prayer and ask the Spirit to guide us and bless us. Say a short Lakota. Achamitake apetikile wacheke wati zanipi wati na wacheke ukagapi wakantaka apetikile lawashte na lawaka. Eche taku na makak neche na wacheke ukagapi na wokekte wopla metakos. So I'd like to start by saying, in our tradition, as a white buffalo calf woman, it's a very ancient sacred bundle I take care of. And since I was 12 years old, and I'm a fluent Lakota speaker, so I never thought things would change when I was at the age being raised by my grandparents, my grandma and my grandpa. And in a way, we're taught about taking care of medicine. We go, our ceremonies are based on the year, the whole year. We follow the cycle of life. Changleshka waka, wana, uongla kapi. Actually, that sacred hoop that I speak of, that's long ago, everything is done our traditional way, and that's the way I grew up. Was there's a certain time for everything. You know, we get up in the morning with a good mind, and that having a good mind is living our lifestyle in a sacred manner. That's what the white buffalo calf woman, she told us to. That's the woman that brought the Chunupa, that secret Chunupa, that secret pipe. So that's what, in our tradition, we always have like here, my wife and me, we all speak together. So that's our tradition. Man and woman, they speak together. And so I never saw things would change like this so fast. And because when I was living with my grandma and grandpa back in the 50s, I grew up hauling water, and we have a old wood stove. We burn for heating and doing medicine, but everything is so proper, because we like we do ceremonies the whole 4 years of 4 seasons, and everything is 4 years. So it's a way of life that we live, and our ways were outlawed till 1978, the Freedom of Religion Act. Now we can do ceremonies in the sacred Black Hills and all these sacred places that we do ceremonies. It's all about that walk, the energy that our people have been praying there for generations. And yet, in my life, when I was in high school, I want to be a better person and we go by the state laws and the tribal laws, and then man-made laws by the government. And through boarding school, we were told that we can't speak the language, our sacred language. So that's what I grew up in that time, and I never thought things would change so fast. Like today, we're speaking on we call it controla. In that era, that time, where we're communicating in modern technology. But I grew up with these prophecies, and can you imagine me living along the river in a log cabin and hauling water? The water is so pure and sweet. And then hauling the wood. We would go with my grandpa and my uncles, and we would go after wood. But when we go after wood, there's certain wood that we use in our ceremonies. And we can't bring a lightning strike tree, because that belongs to the Wakino Yati, the thunder beings. So in our ceremonies, we do like the welcoming, the thunder ceremony, March 21st, every year, to welcome the thunder beings. So everything is way ahead like that. And we pick our medicine way ahead. That we do these ceremonies. So our lifestyle is simple. It's we don't really it's a simple life, and only live what we need to live with. And our tradition is like we have in our ceremony, the other part is a giveaway, and we give things away. So that keeps the balance in our lifestyle here upon Mother Earth. And so we honored yesterday, Earth Day. I made a statement saying that we all honor all women, especially the missing and murdered women, because long time ago we never had missing and murdered women, but it's because of the greed and pipelines, man-made man camps that we're faced with on our reservation. Where I live, at Cheyenne River Reservation, they're laying that pipeline down. But the President Trump, we were at Standing Rock, and we told the people, there's a man there, he's going to become a president. And he's part of that. He has money invested in that, and all that. It's all about money. The rich are getting richer, and we as spiritual people, we trying to maintain our Mother Earth is a spirit, and that's why we always start the prayer, ask the Spirit to help us, ask the medicine to help us, and that's why we made a statement said that Mother Earth is a source of life, not a resource. So from the time I was young, speaking Lakota, and living a very simple life till today, where all of our prophecies is now coming true.
Yes.
And so that I never thought that the elders, what they told me about the white animals, they say that this has been told so long ago in our ceremonies, and so we never seen in our lifetime, but you tell your grandchildren about this prophecy about the white animals shall be born someday. Because the white buffalo calf woman, she told the people that to pray and do your ceremonies and your traditional medicine and be healthy like that through prayer. So that's the way I grew up, but that's when the white animals were born in 1994 with James at Jamestown. The first white animal was born in
Janesville, Wisconsin.
Yeah, Janesville, Wisconsin. So we did our ceremony, and then we went there because in the ceremony it said, "This is time right now has come to send a message to the world, but white animals shall be born upon Mother Earth. That we are at the crossroads, either be faced with a lot of chaos, disasters, tears from our relatives' eyes, different types of sicknesses, viruses, and there's going to be earth changes and climate changes. There's going to be volcanoes and earthquakes where it never happened before. We're going to see a lot of changes, that leaders are not leaders no more. Because the leaders, they were there for the people. That disease has affected the man. That man has gone too far because the sickness has come upon the people, the leaders. We see false prophets, false leaders. Because from here on, 1994, we're not going to see no more honorable wars. It's all about resources. That Mother Earth is a source of life, not a resource. So that's the message that we made in starting World Peace and Prayer Day. So there's so much that I'd like to share with you. And when I was young, the elders told me, I was sitting under the shade, and one of the leaders said, our spiritual leader said, no, there's a time coming soon, and it's coming fast, that Crazy Horse in his prophecy says that in his last dream, now Crazy Horse was a fearless leader. He never shed a tear. But that day, when he told that story, and I said this story of Crazy Horse at Standing Rock, when all people all over the world came to Standing Rock. And I told him that prophecy of Crazy Horse. He said, I foresee a time in the future. See, I saw a time when things were so bad. And I said, then he said, as time went on, it got even worse. It's really bad. That's when he had tears in his eyes, told the people. Then at the end, I saw all nations uniting under the sacred tree. And to us as medicine people, spiritual leaders, that tree of life is like that tree in our heart. We're the keepers of the Chasapa, the Black Hills, in a spiritual way. We take care of our ceremonies there. But if you see from the satellite view, it's an open heart. They put a red fluorescent light on it, and all its creeks and streams, and it goes into a river. It looks like on that heart, it looks like blood vessels. And if you see from the satellite view, and all the rivers and creeks of North America, it goes into the Mississippi River, and it goes into the ocean. So if you look at all the branches there, Standing Rock is one of the branches there, and they're trying to lay that pipeline down. No, that's going to affect our body, because in our ceremony, we told the people that we know what has happened to the past, we know what's going on today, and we know what's going to happen in the future. Well, my relatives, the future is upon us today. And so we warn that someday you would not be able to control what you have created. And that day is here today. But in our ceremonies and our way of life, that's what we speak of today, because from the time I was young, I heard all these prophecies, and now it's coming about. I never thought in my lifetime that I would be speaking about this, but here I am today, because the changes have changed so fast, and that the way that we live, it's always ongoing, but we have to always go with these changes and try to live with the changes. But there's some things that will never change. It's about spirit. It's about our health and well-being, our mind, body, and spirit. So there's so much that teachings that come with our spiritual life, and then even that teepee that we live, it's a vortex to the great spirit, the mind, the body, and spirit. Spirit, three things that we tie. Called we come is we is the sun, the life giver. We kan is holds our bodies together, and so we tie it together. And then we add 12 teepee poles together, and that's the 4 teachings of our ceremonial life. And then the women are the backbone of our nation, so they lay that one pole in the back. They tie that long time ago, it's a buffalo robe, but today it's a canvas that we use. They put a dress on it. Then you put it right in the middle of that teepee in the back. So the women are the backbone of our nation. And so this is they're very close to like the mother has to nurse that baby. And our teachings we used to, when I was young, and we had so much respect for that teepee and a child being born. I grew up with the teaching of the elders and my grandma that when a child is born, that teepee, the mother nursed that. So nursing that baby is like a tree, nursing that child with love and compassion. But today, people are they're disconnected because they nurse them with milk, and it's going to affect them too. So you got to nurse the mother has to nurse the baby to live, to give them that love and compassion. So there's so much that I want to share with you with our traditional medicine and our lifestyle is very important, and that's what is kind of missing today, because we're living in a very dangerous world that like our teepees, there's no padlock. We share, and yet today, we can't trust anybody. It's a very dangerous time, and people padlock their doors, and now we can't even shake hands or hug, because of the virus that has come upon us. But there's so much prophecies that came with that, the sickness, and it's so we've been going to United Nations in the early 1990s to deliver that message, and anyway, they never really gave us that time. And in fact, a lot of world leaders kind of were not there. But it was a very important message, because the elders that went there in the early 90s, they're all gone. But I'm still here and delivering that same message in the early 90s, that Mother Earth is she's a spirit, and Mother Earth is sick and has a fever. That we need to go back to our spiritual ways through prayer and healing. and that we can create an energy shift upon Mother Earth. And that's what World Peace and Prayer Day is all about. But I'd like to say that much for now, and I'd like to have my wife talk about World Peace and Prayer Day.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. Hi, Paula.
Hi. I guess I'll start out with when I came to help with this vision of World Peace and Prayer Day. I think that growing up in, I felt like I really grew up with around teachers was with my grandmother, and we grew up similar. We were probably one of the last on the reservation not to have electricity, because my grandmother was really scared of electricity. She used to say, you know, she didn't allow it in our home, and she said, you know, the thunder beings are going to come back for it someday. And I would just laugh at her, you know, I say, because we would go to my aunt's house and she'd have electricity and she would just be like really scared. And funny is you know, as she was very serious about it, because my aunt ended up taking her, and because she was so used to wood heat, you know, when she went to live with her, it was the new thing was electric heat, and probably what took her, because it was a different kind of heat. And then any of you grew up with wood heat and electric heat, it's really, really different. And that's the energy of, you know, life itself and respecting. But as far as World Peace and Prayer Day, when Arvol asked me during as it's called, Devil's Tower, we call it Greyhorn Butte or Matotipila, was to bring attention to sacred sites. And already I was working on trying to bring attention to Pipestone. We did a sacred run for 7 years with the Ihanktawa tribe, trying to bring attention to the exploitation of the sacred pipe. And so he reached out to me and asked me if I would help with that. And I really didn't at the time understand his vision, but mine was the protocol, going to the tribes that shared the sacred site of Matotipila, and in visiting them and I guess educating myself about the difference and similarities of nations, it really opened my eyes how we're the same, and yet the way we've been raised with our teachings, it's all the same, but there's a difference, and we have to respect those differences. That's why we have to ask for permission. So in accomplishing that, he wanted to take it to the 4 directions, which we did on Turtle Island. And then when we did a thank you ceremony back at the Black Hills, a man approached us from England. I can't even remember that man's name now, but he came to the house and he said, you know, I know what you all are doing and I believe in it, and I want to take this around the world. And at that time I was like really burnt out, because it's on a grassroots level, and we didn't have a nonprofit till like the end of the 5 years, and a man approached Arvol to assist in getting donations, because we were just kind of depending on spirit and people to sponsor it, and it was really difficult, but it would always turn out. And that was my motto back then, on a wing and a prayer. And it was really difficult because nobody understood that we really struggled to pull these things off, and we never ever paid ourselves to during these events, because we felt like the message of the Pipestone Run is, you know, you don't exploit the sacred. But in anything you do, you need help. So it was being educated about nonprofits and being accountable, and it was new to our people. And all they, when this happens, you know, what the government's done to us is, you know, it's divided our people in ways of where on reservations they chose few and important families to reap from the benefits. And then, of course, it was a divide and conquer tactic. And if you look at it on reservation levels, at different reservations, it was like that on Turtle Island, and it's like that in the world. And so it's a tactic, and I really feel that we need to get educated about or become aware about what is happening. And so in lieu of that, when he offered to do this ceremony around the world at sacred sites, and we understood it, you know, but it was kind of far-fetched. And he said, "Oh, I'll assist and I'll fund this," and so we took it to ceremony with him, and we said, "Okay, we'll do this." And then, like 3 months later, he said, "My funder fell through," and he goes, "Can we postpone this and we'll talk about it later?" And I said, "You don't get it. Once you give your word, you know, and you have to keep it." And that was, you know, something that with our people, that's the only thing really you own in this world is your word. And, you know, you're not gonna, when you go to the spirit world and to that other life, you know, all you have is whatever word that you earned. And so I kind of was like freaked out, to be honest with you, because I knew it would be easy to say, "Oh, he messed up," you know, and he's not going to fund it and put it all on him. But then, you know, I made that commitment, and so did Arvol, and so we had to pull it off. And just to speed it up, all these years, this is the 24th year. It's been difficult to pull these off on different sacred sites. We went from Ireland, which I'm really proud of Ireland, because they took that ceremony to their sites for the following 4 years after we prayed with them. And in the 4th year, they had a peace accord. And of course, you know, political leaders took credit, but I really believe it was the people that did it, because when we had World Peace and Prayer Day, we invited the Protestant and Catholic priests to come to the fire, and they were ready to war there. And it was really intense, and I guess I really didn't understand what was going on there, why they were killing each other, literally, and their relatives. And yet I could reflect on it, you know, living on a reservation, but not to that extent. So they had they prayed with each other at the sacred fire. And if you ever go to Ireland now, their sacred sites are predominant. They bring attention to it, and they brought back their traditional Irish ways now, and we're in touch with them. And then the 2nd year, we went to Australia, and Ela Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's granddaughter, assisted us. And it was, and the reason why I'm kind of mentioning these first 4 ones before, because it was really hard to depend on people, and to depend on spirit to guide us to those people. And then from there we went to Australia. And in Australia, there is a man that came at the end of the event that talked about the Aboriginal leaders. And he was a doctor, he was a non-Aboriginal, and lived with the Aborigines. And these elders asked him, when his family was leaving as a teenager in this community, to take this sacred bundle of crocodile teeth and give it to this leader that was going to come in 33 years to the country to deliver a message. And with that, he was asked to tell the people during that time that this message that was going to be given had to be paid attention to. So he carried this bundle and grew up and had a family. And the last day that we were there, his son decided to come to World Peace and Prayer Day. And they got in an argument, and he got out of the car and started walking. And of course, the ASICS leader, who never picks up hitchhikers, that's an Aboriginal leader of all the tribes there, picked him up. And at that time, the only ones that owned cell phones were political leaders, those big, huge cell phones. And when he was in the car, he looked at the brochures, which one was ours and one was the sacred site we were going to pray at the Grampian Mountains. And he opened up the Grampian Mountains from a satellite view, and it was shaped like a horseshoe. And he realized that his father's story of the Aboriginal leaders foretelling of 33 years, that it is now time for him to bring that bundle, because then our brochure was, a picture of Arvol and the description of what we do. So he called his father, and his father went in the attic and dusted it off and brought that bundle to World Peace and Prayer just when Arvol was going to say, I hope you continue these ways and, come back to your Aboriginal ways, etc. And I had to stop him before he closed the ceremony and brought that doctor to the stage. And he told that story that I just told you now. And he said, on the way here, I was counting the years to when that day the Aboriginal elders set this forward with me, and it was 33 years to the day. And so when he said that, I was like, okay, this is meant to be, because I was about to quit. It was so much criticism, especially from our own people. They were like, what are you doing going to other countries? And, they thought we were, I guess vacationing, and yet we were going to third world countries, just like, in South Africa, the AIDS epidemic, and, we prayed there together with the AIDS patients, and nobody was going there to pray with them. They were scared of them. It's kind of like this, what's going on over there. And they thought that we were angels or something, because I was kind of surprised that, nobody was praying with them in these huge hospitals in their hospital beds. In any case, those were the kind of countries and people we were praying with and bringing attention to sacred sites and their umbilical cords of who they are as a people. And so then the last one, the biggest one that we have ever organized, or helped organize, I should say, because the people did, was Japan. Japan, there was like 7,000 workers, all young people. And, they were concerned, and it was a beautiful ceremony. And so in doing this work, with World Peace and Prayer Day, since that time, that was in 2005, and then since then we've had it in different locations in New Zealand and Mexico, and sacred runs and walks in Hawaii, and we've assisted them to activate their sacred sites. And so the importance of, I wanted to bring this history about, was telling that story in Australia, is because I was getting burnt out. I got tired, and I think any of you that do good work, you get criticized, and that's what was going on. And I was at the point of, I don't want to do this anymore. And of course, Arvol is always resilient, and people try to, say he's making this up, or it was their idea, or, but he's the one that had that dream when he was a little boy. He seen his mother's TV, and at the time his mother used to watch As the World Turns, and he shared with me that he touched this hand touched this world, and it opened up, and it was this circle of people that he didn't recognize. There were different shades of human beings, and they were praying around a sacred fire, and he was just young then. And so he said, this has come about, when we had the first World Peace and Prayer Day, and as time went on, he realized that his dream came true, and he knew that this was going to happen. inside, and his father told him that one day that it was. So, but then it was like, those are the battles we humans have with one another. That's a disease of the mind that we contract, of, you know, not believing in spirit. And so our work that I've finally realized with World Peace and Prayer Day is just not, it's all about sacred sites and it's all about Mother Earth, but it's really awakening the people to their own umbilical cords of who they are. Each of us, when we awaken our umbilical cord of praying from that area, and knowing that it's connected to your grandmother, all the way down to the original teachings of how humans came here, to connect to the earth and the responsibility. It's being proud of who you are as a human being and not trying to be something you aren't. Because in that awakening for me, meeting all these people around the world in their indigenous areas of their sacred sites, I realized that America has taught this melting pot theory, and it's really taught you to disconnect from who you are as a human being. And there's so many people that, you know, they have come to us and said, you know, I'm so ashamed my people did this to you, and da da da. And it's like, you know, we could look at our recent history. It's the way the disease of the mind is contracted and passed to even relatives. You know, they change and they contradict what the original teachings are. And that's what the disease of the mind is about. And so it's in looking at this, it's all about energy. And so when people find who they are, and we have one particular friend that used to go our ways and stuff, and he finally listened and he went back to Sweden, and he fasted there. And we were just surprised to see him at a World Peace and Prayer Day in Oregon, probably about 5 years ago. And he showed up in his traditional outfit, and he does this guttural type of singing, and which is different to us. And, you know, this is a person that we knew that really changed, you know, and he just said, I know what you mean now because my ancestors talked to me. And so I think that everybody believes that, now that I look at different beliefs around the world where they say they're just, you know, stories or fables, and I realize that they're stories of real ancestors that everybody is connected to. And so in that connection of healing your umbilical cord, it's respecting who you are. And yes, each of us have, you know, been imposed by the disease of the mind in our lineage at different times in our life, but originally we're all connected to being indigenous, to that responsibility. And to me, that's a responsibility of healing the earth and being a part of it. But at the same time, I think we're really judgmental of each other. I think that if we just learn to forgive, and if we just learn to forgive ourselves, because we've all gone through teachings of making wrong decisions, of you know, being in a circle that didn't give us any advantage to learning what our responsibility should be as a human being and a participant. And a lot of times families hold things against each other, especially on reservations, and even within a family nucleus. So I think that when we realize that we all are connected and we have a responsibility to heal, then we can respect each other and respect ourselves, because we will have connected to our ancestors. We will have healed our umbilical cord. And sometimes we hate people too much, you know, that are affecting us. And that's why in our teachings we say you even pray for your enemies, because they need prayers to wake up in order for your life to heal as well. So anyway, that's just what I say.
Thank you, Paul.
Beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And I love the story about Australia because it really shows you to not give up, not to give up on your dreams. And I love what you were saying, that we're all related. We are all one. And there is that sacred hoop of life. So I'm going to turn this over to Janet, and then Anne, and then we're going to answer a few questions. Is that okay? Would you be able to stay on to answer a few questions? Okay, so next guest is Janet McGillivray. She's an environmental attorney, a social change activist with expertise in water and health, because we talked a lot about water being sacred. She founded Seeding Sovereignty, which was birthed at Standing Rock to amplify the role of Indigenous knowledge and to de-expert and diversify the environmental movement. Janet is a former whistleblower, has worked in legal and leadership positions at EPA and national and international NGOs. So Janet, we're going to take you off mute, please. And if you can just tell us a little bit about Seeding Sovereignty and some of the great work you're doing right now. You have our attention.
Thank you so much. Happy Earth Day.
Yes.
Paul and Arvol, it's a delight to see you and hear you. I could listen to you for days. Thank you, Dawn, for the opportunity to join today. And Seeding Sovereignty is a way of listening and a way of working in partnership with frontline communities, particularly women, who are standing for the protection of our shared Mother Earth and who are unfairly and unjustly burdened by corporate takings of land, water, culture, life. I'll be brief here because I'm still really feeling a lot of what was just shared. And I'm happy to share with your audience here more information about the organization. I'll highlight a couple of things today briefly so that we may share time together with questions. The issues that many communities face and chronically face are being amplified and spotlighted by the coronavirus. And what we've decided to do during this time, where we work on a lot of extraction sites and supporting the communities there through expertise or resources or methods to uplift their voice and tell their own story in their own ways, through their own lens, to diversify the media, to diversify the tools, to share different ways of actually approaching the challenge, and thinking about what they would like their communities to look like, not what others believe they should look like. And here with the coronavirus, we've decided to pivot and particularly look at communities in New Mexico. And we have decided to really work with 3 communities that cannot respond the way that the CDC and others are asking. The assumptions that many have are startling. And when you impose additional burdens on peoples that have never, as Paula referred to, having running water, having safe drinking water, having breathable air, not having chronic illnesses like diabetes, not having high rates of missing and murdered Indigenous women, there is a breaking point, and it needs to stop. So we are looking at servicing communities in partnership. We only go where we're invited to go, and we only work with those that really, we build relationships. It's a different way, it's a circle, not a hierarchy. We are de-experting what has been called the environmental movement. We want to be led by Indigenous way in a multi-generational vision. And ultimately trying to make the linkages between the energies that we've talked about, whether it's water or the lightning or energy of fossil fuels or the energy of life. What many people don't understand is that during this time of COVID, while many are sheltering in place and they have lost their livelihoods, the pipeline companies, the workers are still working. So at the Cheyenne River,
Yep.
in the Ozone territory, out at Chaco Canyon, all of these destructive, extractive, and murderous, genocidal industries are continuing at a time of a global pandemic. And I think that we need to understand that this is going to be another form of missing and murdered Indigenous women. When this illness comes in to communities where they cannot protect themselves, and those are deemed essential services, we are on such the wrong path. And so Seeding Sovereignty at the moment is looking at stop the money pipeline ways to pull money out of the fossil fuel infrastructure. And today, for example, we're having an online day of action to try to get attention to KKR Bank, to Chase Bank, because the Wet'suwet'en pipeline gas link is being built in the territory, unceded territory, where the hereditary elders, the community, and the women have said no. And so if we can get people to pull their money out of these banks and put pressure on those banks that are literally now becoming oil company owners. These banks have actually funded these pipelines for years. And very recently, they have moved to take the assets that are completely valueless. And just yesterday, the price of oil tanked. It's negative. There's no reason to continue building the pipeline on the reservation that Arvol just mentioned. There's no reason to expand the Dakota Access Pipeline. There's no reason to frack a sacred site of Chaco Canyon. There's profit, investment, and the dependency on a gamble that pipeline companies have made at the expense of our lives and the life of our planet. She is a spirit. And so we are looking at these banks that are now during a day of divestment, and Women Power Our Planet is asking people to take their money out of these banks. One thing that's really alarming is that these assets are now valueless, and the banks are now literally moving to get regulations passed so that they can take these invested assets and bring them into their own companies and be holding companies. So of oil companies. So those who bank with JP Morgan Chase, Citibank, you're now owning a pipeline. You're owning pipelines soon. And it's imperative that we take that energy, we take it out. It is a disease of the mind. It's a spirit that needs to be understood. We have to move towards different forms of energy. We have to use less. We have to rely on each other more. And we have to give thanks for what we have. And so I want to end here by just saying, thank you for the opportunity. We continue to try to support relatives during this particular pandemic. We have information on our website, and I'll share in a newsletter later. But I want to share my time with Anne-Therese and with Arvol and Paula to have more enough opportunity to answer the questions that most of us truly have. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Yes, and I think that most people are not aware of how the banks use their money. Think of it like crowdfunding. Your money doesn't just sit in the bank. They actually take it and then invest it in fossil fuel or whatever they feel like they want to invest it in, which is not my values, and I'm sure it's not anybody listening values. So what we encourage at Women Power Our Planet, go to our resource section. There are lots of banks, credit unions that do not invest in fossil fuel. And you want to just, because people say, well, what can I do? What can one person do? Move your money. So let's just start with that.
I want to quickly add that there's amazing work being done by young people, because I know we're transitioning into hearing from Anne-Therese. Yesterday, I was very, very fortunate to be invited to be on a panel with Bill McKibben and others from Divest Harvard. And these are young people that are going up against their own institutions on behalf of communities everywhere, risking being kicked out of school or losing jobs or whatever their families may wish for them. Many of them have worked hard for scholarships and things like that. And I believe there were some 8 to 10 schools. They're all uniting, and they're all doing this on behalf of getting their institutions to pull their money. And we're talking about extremely large sums of money from fossil fuel infrastructures. And and the banks that are actually funding them and fueling climate destruction and fueling genocide. And so I wanted to celebrate also those wins that we do have. We just got to keep going together.
Yes, there has been some huge wins, which gives me a lot of hope and positivity. One of our movements is not only break up with your bank, the hashtag break up with your bank, but also green your 401k, meaning there's many, many people that have a 401k and they, again, can transition that into green energy, clean energy, and investments that are sustainable and impact investing. So, all right, so we're going to move on to Ann Therese. We're very excited to have her here on our panel. Ann Therese Gennari is a former model. She's an entrepreneur. She's an influencer with a deep passion for global health and environmental activism. In 2017, she co-founded Role Models Management, the world's first ethical modeling agency and influencer agency, representing models on a mission to use their platforms for good. And I have to say, Ann has been so incredible at using her platform and her influence to really move the needle and awaken people to what's going on with the climate crisis. So without further ado, Ann, welcome. You have our undivided attention.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I will also try to keep it short because I know we have a lot of questions probably, but just to piggyback off a lot of things that has been mentioned today about, I mean, you just bridged over to talking about the youth. I think it's incredible to see what young people are coming forth and doing today in terms of using their voices and speaking up about what they find to be right. I also feel there is such a need in our world to stop pointing fingers and blaming one another and just focusing on everything we've done wrong, because ultimately we have been wrong for a long time. And so just embracing that acceptance and saying, okay, you know, we know that now, how can we move forward and how can we actually start bringing light? And I think changing the conversation around climate change and our current situation so that we can start feeling good about being here today. I think that's really important. You start seeing amongst especially younger people that a lot of people are now suffering from depression and climate depression and all sorts of mental disease that comes about when we know we're facing a really difficult time and no one seems to do anything about it. And all we hear is, you know, the disaster that's upon us and how companies are destroying our planet and all these sorts of things. So I do think it's imperative that we start changing the conversation and that we start influencing one another, and that we need to use all the technology that we have been given today. It is a weird time. It's so weird to sit here and not be amongst you all in person and try to like talk and spread wisdom online. But at the same time, that is the world we live in today. And it's a beautiful thing because we can reach so many people in no time. And I think if we start looking at it from that lens, we start to realize the power we do have to influence one another. And so my agency, Role Models Management, is all about that. We have a hashtag that says proud to inspire. And what we're trying to encourage our models and our influencers and our talent is to own your privilege, but also your rights to speak up about things that you care about and to see that as a beautiful thing and not a shameful thing. And I think we need to start changing what's cool and what's fashionable. You know, you can be, I myself am a huge tree hugger, and it's so funny when I sometimes share online that I go out and hug trees, but for me it's just such a grounding, healing experience. And I think it's starting to become more accepted in like the modern world or in pop culture to be more of a tree hugger, and like in any sense of the word. But bottom line, I think it is a beautiful time to be alive if we start looking at it that way. We are facing many challenges, and we cannot close our eyes to that. At the same time, there's also so much opportunity to start, you know, paving roads for a new direction and head into a completely different world. And I think it's just incredible to be here with you today, to have this indigenous wisdom of prophecies that have been told for many, many years, and then bridging the gap between that old wisdom with, you know, the modern world and the youth that's just here ready to get to action and who's just waiting for the right, you know, spark to say, you know, we can do this, let's get together, let's empower one another, and let's influence one another to find light and to continue to build towards a better world. So I'm just super honored to be here. I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing with Women Power Our Planet and helping people realize the power in moving their money, and also, of course, voting with your dollar, making sure that you support businesses that are all about helping to save the world and not destroying the world. But I think a big message here today too has been just to connect with yourself and to be okay with being who you are. And I think that is one of the most beautiful things that is coming from this crazy, weird COVID-19 time. You are literally forced outside of your hamster wheel, and you're given a chance to just sit back and reflect and be with yourself and come back and land in your own body. And I think that's an incredible thing in itself. So yeah, I choose to be hopeful about the future. I call myself a stubborn climate optimist. I do understand there's a lot of work to be done, but yeah, I think if we can just continue to spread that message that we can do this, there's a lot of hope for the future.
Oh, thank you, Anne. That was really amazing. And one of the things that you touched on that I think is really important, there's the prophecy of the eagle and the condor, and the technology with the indigenous wisdom. And if we can bridge those two with love and heart and bring those together, I'm really, really excited about the future, actually, and very positive about, creating a new earth. And I think part of this coronavirus is making us, kind of slow down and reflect on what's going on. So I'd like to open this up for a few questions. I have a few questions as well. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So the people out there viewing, if you have any questions, there's a chat. You can go to the bottom and you can hit chat, and you can write in any questions you have for Paula or Anne, Arvol or Janet. Please do. And one of the questions that I have for both Janet and Arvol is, how can we mend this sacred hoop? I wanted to get a little bit of your thoughts on what can we do going forward to bring about reciprocity. You talk about Mother Earth being a spirit, respecting her, that she has a fever right now and she needs help. Can you talk a little bit about that before we answer some of these questions? Arvol and Paula?
Oh, okay.
Good.
I thought you said Janet. Okay. I think that for me, when Arvol had talked about Mother Earth having a fever, it's, the reflection of Mother Earth is the same as our bodies, for instance. When he talks about the heart of Mother Earth being the Black Hills, and when we went to New Zealand, they talk about the coral reefs being the lung purifiers. Mm-hmm. And then you go to the Dene, and what's going on with the coal, they talk about it being the kidney. And so and then of course the other ones is the rainforest, being the lungs, right? And so in going around the different indigenous areas where they talk about their significant sacred site, you reflect upon our own bodies. And the biggest one is, to me, is they say there's a hole in the ozone layer. And when we get hurt, which all of us have hurt ourselves one way or the another, and I'll just take the most minimal one, you stub your toe. You ever realize you keep hurting it? It's like, so to me, when I start looking at that, and when my kids were young, I used to take sweetgrass or smudge, and I do it now with our coming of age and different youth programs. I blindfold them and I help them learn what their aura is. And so in doing that, of course you smudge the whole room. It isn't where the heat is coming from or anything, but you ask them where it's at, because the medicine, the smudge, is the spirit itself. And so I did this with some youth down in Morton, Minnesota. And I was really surprised that, maybe out of 30 kids, 5 of them really got it. And they would say, it's over here, it's on top of my head, or it's in the back of me. And what it is practicing to feel your aura. And so when I talked about the gut feeling, right? All of you, if you go inside of a room, you know if somebody doesn't like you or somebody likes you, right? And then you get this feeling in your abdomen, a warning or a warm feeling that you're in a safe place or even a spiritual place or even danger. And then like something will happen, say, oh, I knew I shouldn't have gotten a car that day, or something. So that's your gut feeling, they call it, to pretty bluntly put it. But what happens is your umbilical cord, it's reflected on your aura, and the stronger you start paying attention to your aura, the stronger it gets, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you guys must know what I'm talking about, being learning about spiritual things. So Mother Earth's aura is the ozone layer. Mm. And so that's her protection. But because of the poisonous processes that come from, destroying, her resources, it goes up to the earth, from the earth, and then it eats away at her ozone layer, her aura. And so right now, I really can't tell you the answer and say I'm a prophet and say, God, this disease is healing her, or even how it's connected or anything. But you see the before and after pictures in just a small amount of time, how her aura must be really healing, right? She's really getting strong, because I see, pollution, and now no pollution, and water's being clear. And I just pray, when I do pray for her, it's like, speed up, because I don't know how long you're going to get a break, right? And I just feel like that should be the message. It's like, pray for Mother Earth so she, can get a break and a small amount of time, because people can heal fast. And some people heal with a miracle, and some people are sick a long, long time. And so to me, that's the energy that we should be putting out with our centers, our umbilical cord too, because to me that connects also to the energy of Mother Earth. And so she has a fever because she's sick, and but I think she's getting a little bit better here, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. I never thought of the ozone layer being, the aura of Mother Earth. And they say the rainforest is the lungs of Mother Earth, and it's just really fascinating, because it's a living, breathing, thinking entity, a mother, a being that we should be respecting. It's the ultimate life giver. And we should be revering, and it's so sacred. So thank you for that. I never even thought of that as the aura being, the ozone layer. So there's a few questions that came in. We have time for one or two, and then we have to wrap it up. I know Janet has to go, and so does Anne. So I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. So here's a question to, what do you see as the proper roles for men and women in light of the current society, egalitarian gender roles and fluidity, and newer people in land ceremonies? Can you answer that, Paula or Arvol? There, that question was to you.
Yeah. In our tradition, there's our equal respect among our people. So when we talk about the sacred hoop, we stand all together, side by side, shoulder to shoulder. And lately we told people that we're living a time when about this virus that is affecting, and we used to pass that Chunupa, the pipe, around, and everybody smoke it. But now today we can't do that. We have to touch each person on the shoulder. That every person in our life there's an equal balance that we have to live with, as a father or a mother. in that sacred hoop. And when somebody dies, then there's we have to go through the 4 seasons of life, and we do a ceremony. It's called a spirit releasing ceremony. But in our life, that the Katanko Yate and that Buffalo Nation always go forward every day, and they don't turn around. And a lot of our teachings come from the animal nation. So
Yes.
it comes from all of us have to live the cycle, the whole 4 seasons, and through prayer. So we get up every morning with a good mind and live our life like that. We have to always move forward like that, because the sun is a life giver. It's in our sacred teachings, and that Mother Earth is a spirit. So we have to, all of us have to be out there and let the sun bless our body, and walk upon the earth and feel Mother Earth. And we give tobacco, Chanli Wakan, Pijuta. They like to offer that tobacco to the sacred tree, because that tree out there is a spirit. And the animal nation, the 2-legged, the 4-legged, the winged ones, those are the ones that swim and crawl. No, we have to all be part of the cycle of life. Everything has its purpose. And today, we have to respect it. Oh.
Okay. Hello?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. So
Okay,
there was another picture came up. Okay. Alexandra?
I'm here, sweetie. Someone accidentally screen shared.
Oh, okay. I just
They're
wanted
off,
to.
though. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to go back to the chat.
Yes.
So one more question very quickly. And this will be the last question, because I want to be respectful of everyone's time. How do we plan, and Janet can answer this, and then maybe Anne, how do you plan to continue your positive influence to inform people about climate justice in the right way? Now that we have a chance to build our planet again, how do we make way for the people like you who should be speaking about climate, not organizations who have been mercilessly harming Earth? So Janet, do you want to take that one on?
I do a lot of listening before I speak. And I plan to continue to listen. I think that elevating and amplifying the voices of those that carry more knowledge for me is most important. And using the platforms that we're creating and the storytelling, sharing and uplifting of others is really the best way for me to have a way to speak, is really by letting others speak. I can then take some of that to those that I would be normally wanting to open their ears and share their platforms and encourage others to do the same. For me, it's really about rebalancing who has access to opportunities to have their voice heard, the stories that are told, and create new ways for others that have never had that invitation to not only be invited, but to lead that conversation. And that's what I plan to do.
I totally agree. I mean, the wisdom of Paul and Arvol is just priceless, And we need to listen to their wisdom and really take it in, and because it's really what's going to save us. So, all right, I'm going to I have time for one more question, and then I'm going to move on and thank everybody for coming. The question is, the virus in the world now, it is a destined blueprint to give us the opportunity, or is this a blueprint to give us the opportunity to come together and heal? So Paula and Arvol, and then I'll let Anne, speak for a few minutes, and then we'll say goodbye. So do you think this is a blueprint for us to come together and heal?
Well, I wish it wasn't. It's like, I think that I've been reading people pointing fingers about how it derived and whether it was animal or somebody did it. And to me, everything is connected. Whether it was derived in a petri dish or it derived from our stupidity, I don't know. But that doesn't seem to be as important as how do we handle it, because the thing that Arvol always says is, Creator doesn't give something that we can't handle. And I think that in itself is a choice, and that's what the crossroads is about, is how do we heal this, not just by practicing, about health and, wearing masks and, all that is important. But I think it really, to me, it's all about energy, and we've talked about it, we've touched on it. And I want to believe that we need to treat each other better. Right now, it feels insane. I hate to say that. It feels insane listening to different people, this division that's happening globally, between nations, between, the political leaders. And then you just want to dismiss them, but yet they're the ones that are playing the game with the life. And so that's why I mentioned, we need to pray for them, that they wake up, and however that is, we hope that it's something great for our children. And so I think that as far as this being a blueprint, I don't like to give it that much energy. It's just the cycle of life, and it's up to us in the crossroads of how we deal with this catastrophe, because, our people went through a lot. When I started hearing about China and everybody dying, and I started thinking about the millions of people that were on this continent, and continents that were killed from the disease of the mind, and how we survived and came out of it. And yet we're such a little tiny portion of this turtle island here that has survived, and yet we still are surviving. And yet, we had one case of the coronavirus on our reservation, and I and Arvol and some spiritual leaders in Quebec went to his aid, and he didn't need a ventilator. He just needed our medicine from the earth. And I think that if everybody depends on the medicine of her and talks to her, then she can heal everything. I mean, 75% of the medicines that exist today came from our people, and they didn't find it in petri dishes or guinea pigs. They found it through connecting to the spirit of the earth, and the spirit would show them what medicine to get. And of course, now it's exploited, and now a lot of things are leaving. But I just wanted to say that much. But the other thing is, worldpeaceandprayer.com, somebody had asked where it's going to be this year, and it was supposed to be in Quebec, and that the information of where it's supposed to be is still up there. But I think at this point, we're just going to look back and to where people have put in their energy to activate their sacred sites and assist where that's going to be. But at the same time, we really want to honor the water, because to keep it in strong, because it is truly, like Arvol said, we need to unite with that tree of life.
So much. And Anne, being a young person and, an activist, I know you're incredibly positive and hopeful about this, what's going on and making way for a new earth. Do you want to give us a couple of words before we end? the event?
Okay, yeah, quickly. I love what Janet said about listening. I think it's important in these days to definitely listen to other people, but also to start listening to yourself and start asking yourself questions like, what do I find to be true? What do I find to be right? And we're so used to this constant noise around us. And it can at first be almost intimidating to be by yourself and not always, being able to be out there and get, constant feedback from the world or from other people. But I think listening, not just to other people, but to yourself and slowing down. And then I think it's really important that we start having conversations with friends and family around the dinner table, online. I think, it's one of those things where we obviously need to be very careful with the words we're using, because whatever words we use, that's a story that we keep telling ourselves. And I think it is a time where we need to, first of all, see what's going on and not close our eyes to it, but also start telling stories of a different future. And the more of these conversations we can start having with each other, I do think that we can spark that hope that's going to lead to the action that we need to start building a new world. So yeah, listen, start having conversations, and again, just slow down and find peace within yourself.
Thank you, Anne. And I would like to end this, if Arvol, if you can say a prayer to end this event. I want to thank everyone so much. We're so honored. The messages that are coming in, everyone feels so honored and so blessed to be part of this event and have learned so much. So again, we thank you for this. And just would like to end with a little prayer if you wanted to lead us in that, and then we'll say goodbye.
Well, no, we're the grandchildren of the Great Spirit, and we can't question Spirit, but always stay humble in our way. That's what I said. Wakantanka ampetukile lawashte and ampetukile wakan what is zanipi. Nachetrukataka zania kimanipi na wokie wanglaka. That should do it. Many blessings.
Mitakiyoasi. I hope I said that correctly. Thank you, everyone. So honored, so blessed. I want to thank everyone that is in and tuning in and listening. You can reach all of us. I will send a follow-up email of where you could go on the website of worldpeaceandprayerday.com, seedingsovereignty.com. I'm sorry, did I say that wrong, Paula? Is it World?
Yeah, it's worldpeaceandprayer.com. We used to have World Peace and Prayer Day, and the guy that was watching over it forgot to pay for it, and now it's being held hostage for $2,000.
Oh no, that's not
I
good.
know, but it's worldpeaceandprayer.com.
Okay, worldpeaceandprayer.com.
Yes.
And so thank you all for being here, Anne, Janet, Arvol, and Paula. We're so blessed. Thank you to Alexandra Bose for helping facilitate this and recording it. Thank you so much. God bless you all, and we will talk again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dawn. Bye.